Sanatana Goswami Thakur Sri Prabhupada ki
Jai!
Rupanuga Vruddha Prasthanta Tvanta.
Yes, sir. That's the wrong thing. I'll just. Okay. Etat Chushrushatam Vidvan Suta No Arsi Bhashitum Kata Hari Kato Darkaha Satam Shu Sadasi Dhruvam Etat Chushrushatam Vidvan Suta no Rahasi Bhashitum Kata Hari Kato Darka Shatamshu Sadasi Dhruvam Etat Chushrushatam Vidvan Suta no Rahasi Bhashitum Kata Hari Kato Darka Satamsu Sadasi Dhruvam Etat Chushrushatam Vidvan Sutta no Rehasi Bhasitum Kata Hari Kato Darkaha Satamsu Sadasi Dhruvam Etatu Sushitam Bhasitum Kata Hari Kato Darka Sadasi Dhruvam Chushrushatam Vidvan Hari Darka Bhasitum Kata Hari Kato Darka Sadasi Dhruvam Mataji's Ita Shushushritam Vidvan Sutano Rasivasitum Kata Hari Kato Darka Satam Susadasi Dhruvam Ita Shushushritam Vidvan Sutano Rasivasitum Kata Hari Kato Darka Satam Susadasi Dhruvam. All right. Word for word. Etat, this. Shushu shatam, for those eager to hear. Vidvan, O learned. Suta, Suta Goswami. Naha, unto us. Arhasi, may you do it. Pashitum, just to explain it. Kataha, topics. Harikata Udaraka, result in the topics of the Lord. Satam, of the devotees. Shu, may be. Sadasi, and the assembly of. Dhruvam, certainly. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. O learned Suta Goswami, please continue to explain such topics to us because we are all eager to hear. Besides that, topics which result in discussion of Lord Hari should certainly be discussed in the assembly of devotees. As we have already quoted above from Bhakti Raswamrita Sindhu, Arupa Goswami, even mundane things, if dovetailed in the service of Lord Sri Krishna, are accepted as transcendental. For example, the Ramayana and Mahabharata, which are epics or histories specifically recommended for the less intelligent classes, women, Shudras, and unworthy sons of the higher caste, are also accepted as Vedic literature because they are compiled in connection with the activities of the Lord. The Mahabharata is accepted as the fifth division of the Vedas after its first four divisions, namely the Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva. The less intelligent do not accept the Mahabharata as part of the Vedas, but great sages and authorities accept it as the fifth division of the Vedas. The Bhagavad Gita is also part of the Mahabharata, and it is full of the Lord's instructions for the less intelligent class of men. Some less intelligent men say that Bhagavad Gita is not meant for householders, but such foolish men forget that the Bhagavad Gita was explained to Arjuna, a grihasta, family man, and spoken by the Lord in his role as a grihasta. So the Bhagavad Gita, although containing the high philosophy of the Vedic wisdom, is for the beginners in the transcendental science, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is for graduates and postgraduates in the transcendental science. Therefore, literatures like the Mahabharata and the Puranas and similar other Vedic literatures, which are full of the pastimes of the Lord, are all transcendental literatures, and they should be discussed with full confidence in the society of devotees. The difficulty is that such literatures, when discussed by professional men, appear to be mundane literature, like histories or epics, because there are so many historical facts and figures. It is said here, therefore, that such literature should be discussed in the assembly of devotees. Unless they are discussed by devotees, such literatures cannot be relished by the higher class of men. So the conclusion is that the Lord is not personal in the ultimate issue. He is the supreme person, and he has his different activities. He is the leader of all living entities, and he descends at his will and by his personal energy to reclaim the fallen souls. Thus, he plays exactly like the social, political, or religious leaders. Because such roles ultimately culminate in this discussion of topics of the Lord, all such Preliminary topics are also transcendental. That is the way of spiritualizing the civic activities of human society. Men have inclinations for studying history books and many other mundane literatures, stories, fiction, dramas, magazines, newspapers, etc. So let such inclinations be dovetailed with the transcendental service of the Lord, and all men will turn to topics relished by all devotees. The propaganda that the Lord is impersonal, that he has no activity, and that he is a dumb stone without any name and form has encouraged people to become godless, faithless demons. And the more they deviate from the transcendental activities of the Lord, the more they become accustomed to mundane activities that only clear their path to hell instead of returning them home back to Godhead. There's a footnote there, so maybe, is that? Yeah, it's there. I don't know if it'll, no. Anyways, I'll just read that real quick. Even 50 years ago, the social structure of all Indians was so arranged that they would not read any literature that was not connected with the activities of the Lord. They would not play any drama not connected with the Lord. They would not organize a fair or ceremony not connected with the Lord. Nor would they visit a place that was not holy and sanctified by the pastimes of the Lord. Therefore, even the common man in the village would talk about the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, Gita and Bhagavatam, even from his very childhood. But by the influence of the age of Kali, they have been dragged to the civilization of the dogs and hogs, laboring for bread without any sense of transcendental knowledge. That's the end of that note. Srimad Bhagavatam begins from the history of the Pandavas with necessary politics and social activities, and yet Srimad Bhagavatam is said to be the Paramahamsa Samhita, or Vedic literature meant for the topmost transcendentalists, and it describes Param Jnanam, the highest transcendental knowledge. Pure devotees of the Lord are all Paramahamsas, and they are like the swans who know the art of sucking milk out of a mixture of milk and water. Om Jnanatimanandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Ditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhuttadai Swayam Rupakaramayam Dadati Swapanandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shuktapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnamam Shah Shri Rupam Sagujatam Sagana Raganaptam Mitam Tam Chajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Bhadan Sagana Naritam Shri Vishakamitam Shah Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhuttadai Shrimante Bhakti Vikas Swaminiti Namane Nama Om Vishnu Bhadaya Krishna Pastaya Bhuttadai Shrimante Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nivishesha Shunipani Paskatash Tarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. O learned Sutta Goswami, please continue to explain such topics to us because we are all eager to hear. Besides that, topics which result in discussion of Lord Hari should certainly be discussed in the assembly of devotees. So, I wanted to read one small thing from Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav, since we chanted this song this morning, and tomorrow is his appearance day, and it's always good for us to glorify the great devotees. So I'll just read, it's about a page, I guess 2 pages, of just from one chapter, then I'll go into the Bhagavatam. So this chapter in the Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav is entitled The Seer and the Seen. And so I'll just read a little bit about that. But I guess like this little topic here that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur talks about. I find it very interesting, and I really like to hear it. That I'm fascinated by this. As probably of all the things that he spoke of, I find that I'm most attracted to this concept or talk here. So I'll read a little bit about that. So, Drishta, the seer, and Drishta, the seen. Are we Drishta or are we Drishtya? Whatever I have to say, my whole message is based on proper comprehension of this truth. But how few people have really understood this Drig Drishta Vichar. Showering tears, Saraswati Thakur repeatedly spoke thus to Sripad Sundarananda Vidya Vinod, while Sundarananda was preparing materials for Saraswati Thakur's biography. The topic of Drishta and Drishya is discussed in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and other Shastras, but Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati clarified and stressed the point perhaps more than any previous acharya. So this is a quote here. A bogi, one who attempts to enjoy this world, considers himself drishta, and everything else, including the Supreme Lord, to be drishta, his object of vision, darshan. Due to their bitter experience of this world, so-called renouncers wish to deny the plurality of drishta and drishtya and darshan, and thus regard them as one. Only devotees have the proper vision to appreciate that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and alone is fully independent and no one's servant, but being drishta should be served by all, for the jivas and all else are to be drishtya, object of his darshan. Srila Saraswati Thakur often expounded Goloka Darshan, spiritual vision versus Jagat Darshan, worldly vision. By Goloka Darshan, Krishna is perceived as the center of existence, and everything in this world is paraphernalia for serving him. But Jagat Darshan, the jiva considers himself the center of existence and views everything, even the Godhead, as paraphernalia for his personal sense enjoyment. By Goloka Darshan, one sees and lives in the spiritual realm, even while present in the mundane sphere. So this is quote continuing. He who sees an object is called the seer, and an object seen by the observer is called the seen. The instrument of seeing is called sight. It is a common error to deem the sense of sight the actual seer. Whatever we can measure by any of our senses, we also call a seeable object, and he who senses it is called the seer. It is best that the jiva see himself as the object of Krishna's enjoyment. Thinking himself the seer, he sees the world as the object of his enjoyment. But thinking himself the enjoyer under the influence of false ego will result only in his misfortune. It is not fitting that the jiva see the world as the object of his own enjoyment. Rejecting that outlook and instead seeing the world as the object of the Lord's enjoyment, seeing it as Krishna's world or Gokula, the jiva's good fortune and satisfies Krishna's senses. I am not the seer, but rather am seen by Krishna. I am not the enjoyer, but the object of enjoyment for Krishna. The enjoyers of this world think themselves seers, and the renunciants, counter to the bitterness they have experienced in the world, ultimately conclude that the seer and enjoyer are nirvishesha, devoid of characteristics. But although it is inauspicious for the jiva to think himself the enjoyer and seer, it is even more auspicious for the jiva to attempt suicide by killing the enjoyer and seer, thinking them to be a hangman's rope around the neck. The best path is to see oneself as the object of enjoyment of and object of seeing by the supreme enjoyer and seer. Hiranyakashipu thought he was the seer of the pillar in his hall and desired to observe the existence of Vishnu, or to measure Vishnu, and judging himself the enjoyer, perceived Prahlad as his son, the object of his enjoyment. But the Lord of inconceivable powers revealed his inconceivable eternal form to Hiranyakashipu and destroyed that seer, and was very merciful to Prahlad, who regarded himself as the object to be seen or enjoyed by Vishnu. So I won't comment so much on that. But just that basic principle is that, because especially in taking up to Krishna consciousness, that mentality can develop, or maybe is already there. It's probably, I assume it's already there. But then the idea of that I'm in Krishna consciousness, or I'm practicing Krishna consciousness, or attempting, but just that, we're engaging in the service, or we're doing the service, but then the mentality is not, how is the service pleasing to Guru or Krishna, but how am I benefiting by this service, or what is in this service for me, or whatever we're doing. We're speaking, but then we're speaking in such a way that everybody likes, what we say and likes us. There's a kirtan mela, and it's there's kirtan going on, but then we only go for our kirtan that we're singing. We don't care to chant with the other devotees that are singing. We want to cook a big feast for the devotees, but we only want to cook the things that we want to eat. So then that mentality. So that's all I'll kind of say about that. But anyways, you could read that whole chapter. It's an amazing chapter. The whole book's amazing. So many different things. But that's one of the amazing topics that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur spoke of, amongst many other things. So, going on to the purport. So this verse in particular is I think Shonaka Rishi speaking. But pretty much, he's glorifying Sutta Goswami, and he's fired up. Why is he fired up? Because there's been discussion of Krishna and Maharaj Parikshit, and he's interested in the topic. Generally, if we're interested in something, we want to hear more about it. If we're not interested, then usually there is no more. The discussion ends. It's like a dead conversation or whatever. So Sonaka Rishi is interested, and so because he's interested and he's fired up and he's inspired and he's he just wants to hear more and more. That's impetus for Sutta Goswami to continue speaking, because he's interested. There's a relationship there. The speaking is going on. So in this particular verse, Shushushatam is mentioned, of those eager to hear. So their sages are eager to hear. But the specific thing is that they're eager to hear Harikatha, so topics relating to Krishna. So because it was already previously discussed by Sukadeva Goswami, there's so many different things to hear in society, thousands and thousands of literatures. And Srila Prabhupada makes that point in the purport here. Just bring up one thing. So the thing is that the clear distinction is that there's hearing from Krishna is there, but hearing has to be heard from the right source. Because, even amongst the world, there are people who dress like devotees, talk like devotees, chant like devotees, and for all purposes seem like devotees. But in the actual truth of the matter is that they're not devotees, because their whole attitude is completely contrary to Krishna consciousness. Just like we're reading here, and just like Bhakti Saraswati Thakur was saying, that there's people who they want to take, Krishna and his qualities and him seeing all those things, they just want to destroy it all, merge it into one. Therefore, that they're, whatever, anyways, not like getting into that whole thing, but, there's only one I, that there is no distinction between, Krishna, me, you, it's all just one. So those people, they may dress like devotees, but then that's ultimately the core of their philosophy. Or they think that these people that they speak like that, they're great gurus. Just like I was asking you the other day about one bogus guru, whatever, this Bhakti Marg. So I saw a video with one devotee who I probably still does, but he comes around the Society of Devotees and he chants, and he's a big kirtan guy. So he was there with these bogus sahajas, and he was glorifying them like anything. That I heard their kirtan, and I was thinking, when will this happen? I'll be there with these great, wonderful devotees, and yada yada yada. But the whole thing is that these people that are they're chanting and their guru, they're all offensive to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they're chanting Jai Radhe, Jai this, Jai Krishna, Hare Krishna, and have so many millions of views. But according to what reality of the situation is, the deviance. So anyway, so he's relishing that Ross. So it's explained, I think this is from the Padma Purana, but a Vaishnava makod girnam putra harikatam ritam shravanam naiva kartavyam sarpochishtam yatapaya. So this verse explains that one should not hear anything about Krishna from a non-Vaishnava. Milk touched by the lips of a serpent has poisonous effects. Similarly, it talks about Krishna given by a non-Vaishnava are poisonous. So the thing is that, do you hear from non-devotees? It may on some sentimental platform, we like to hear Krishna, or this one devotee, he chants Hare Krishna so nicely. But the thing is that the result from hearing about Krishna and associating with actual devotees, that one becomes more attached to the service of Krishna, and one's material desires also, they go away. Now that one's hearing about Krishna, and he's continuing smoking, or he's continuing all of his nonsense activities. There has to be some stoppage there from that. And there has to be some discussion of that also. Srila Prabhupada makes the point in the purport that that mundane people, they discuss the the literature of the Lord. So, and they don't actually understand them properly. So the proper way of understanding that is mentioned Satam Prasangan Mamavirja Samvido Bhavanti hit Karna Rasayana Kata Taj Josanad Apswaba Varga Vartmani Shara Ratir Bhaktir Anukramishati. And so that's from the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But then Srila Prabhupada would also quote this very often. In the association of pure devotees, discussions of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed and his attraction becomes fixed. Thus, real devotion and devotional service begin. Specifically, this hearing and association of devotees, and that's also mentioned in this verse, Satam. So in the association of devotees, and devotees are speaking about Krishna and glorifying Krishna. Krishna is there present, actually. There's some verse that speaks like that Krishna explains that he's, in one verse, that he's not in Vaikuntha or these places, but he's actually where his devotees are, and they're glorifying him. So Krishna becomes present there in that transcendental sound. And so when the bona fide devotees are speaking and glorifying Krishna, then that acts upon the hearts of the listener. So then naturally there's people, they want to hear more about Krishna, discuss more about Krishna, and like this. So this is one of the principles of Srimad Bhagavatam, that you have bona fide devotees speaking and glorifying Krishna, and therefore the hearers are more and more eager to hear. So about Krishna. So that's the perfection, actually. And so Srila Prabhupada goes on here and he gives one example, opening up the purport about mundane things being dovetailed in the service of Krishna, accepted as transcendental, which is interesting because he cites he's mundane in the sense that the history is generally mundane, but it's transcendental when it's connected with Krishna or his devotees, Ramayana and Mahabharata. So it's people and there's history and whatever, epics. Anyways, from our perspective, we don't really see those as mundane, but people, they sometimes study those, or the Mahabharata and things, the historical perspective of it, and try to calculate it. That point is mentioned here, that that professors and whatever, they discuss the Mahabharata and Ramayana and Gita and in histories and facts, and this is when it happened, and this time, this year, and do these people actually exist, or when do we calculate the age of it? But when we read the Srimad Bhagavatam and discuss the literatures and Puranas and things like that, usually we don't really focus so much in on that element about, when exactly was the Bhagavad Gita spoken, when, what was the date, all these different things. We're more eager to hear the teachings of it, and the just to read it, and so many things, it's the teachings, but just the glorification of Krishna that's mentioned there. So our whole approach is actually different, because we don't read it from a historical perspective, studying and trying to learn something. Just like people, they major in whatever, American history or Russian history or European history, or there's so many different histories you can major in. So someone that majors in American history, they study all the facts differently and have all the major events of American history. The first revolution, the Civil War, then the wars, and then how that affected the economy and all that different things. And then they teach that to everybody in the schools. So then they learn it from that angle. Then that's, they approach it and they understand it. And it's really not, it's just analyzing the different things. They don't really go so deep into it. I guess, some people do go deep into it, and then they get really fired up about American history. So they study in that way. But the thing is that they study the history and then they learn all the facts and figures. But the sole purpose is, first off, it's an attraction to mundane things. But the second thing is that it's dealing with the material sphere. So there is some attraction, because otherwise, why are people studying history? Because they're interested. People will say different things, but people are interested because, history, we can learn from it, and we can see the mistakes of the past, and then we can grow and make better of that. Or it's, some people are interested, and this is how people lived or talked or whatever. or how society was, or some people are very fascinated in what led to the wars and then the conflicts and things between nations, and generally like that. There's an interest there in some aspect of history, whether it be people or individuals of the time or whatever. So there's some interest in that particular sphere. So that interest somehow or other has to be, which is our duty to dovetail that into Krishna service, to attract people to that. Srila Prabhupada mentions that towards the end of the purport. He says that explaining that Krishna, he comes and he, as the social, political, or religious leaders, so such roles ultimately culminate in the discussions of topics of the Lord. All such preliminary topics are also transcendental. That is the way of spiritualizing the civic activities of human society. Men have inclinations for studying history books and many other mundane literatures, stories, fiction, dramas, magazines, newspapers, etc. So let such inclinations be dovetailed with the transcendental service of the Lord, and all men will turn to the topics relished by all devotees. So we have to rack our brains and figure out, how to bring people from, what is bridge preaching. That there's millions and billions of people in the world, and they're interested in so many different things. They're interested in stories, fictions, dramas, magazines, newspaper, or whatever. YouTube nowadays, I guess that's mostly it. People live, no more magazines, books, or anything, just newspaper, just YouTube and things. So we have to utilize our intelligence and figure out, how that people that are interested in these things for whatever reasons, how can they become interested in Krishna consciousness? How can they begin to read Srila Prabhupada's books? How can they begin to discuss the topics mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam? How can they be drawn into these different avenues? This is in this widespread preaching. How is that exactly done? So that takes a little intelligence. We see that Srila Prabhupada, he published this Back to Godhead magazine. So it was it every month? Does anybody remember? It was every month?
Monthly.
Monthly, okay.
Fortnightly. I think at the beginning.
Oh, every 2 weeks, huh? Okay.
In the beginning it was fortnightly.
Okay.
We have a subscription plan.
So the idea, then generally, and especially back in those days, I think now even still magazines are a big thing. At least I see in the stores that they by the register they have all these different magazines, and it's like I remember the same magazines when I was growing up. There's like some magazines, and they're like smack talking celebrities, there's some gossip, and then Time magazine, and then there's other magazines. What's this?
National Geographic.
Yeah, and then I forget exactly, for Foreign Affairs or something like that. I forget.
GQ.
No, yeah, GQ4s, but there was a Foreign Policy, I think that's what it was. And then there was The Economist, that was also another one. And then whatever, that just deals with just current world affairs and things like that from, I guess, probably the American's perspective. But, so people have that interest in hearing things. So Srila Prabhupada published this Back to Godhead magazine, and so I'm assuming the idea is not assuming, but Srila Prabhupada clearly explained that the devotees, that they have they can discuss all these different topics and then bring it to the point of how this is connecting this with Krishna consciousness, how this is relevant. Because people, they may not initially be interested in Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or for whatever reason. But if we can show about how Bhagavad Gita is actually relevant in their lives, about how, whatever, that you're talking about this, I don't know what's going on as far as crises in the world, but whatever, oil crisis, that was a big thing back in the day. It probably still is. So, but the actual solution to the oil crisis is that, Srila Prabhupada explained that the solution is, get the oxes and pull the cart. No more oil, which is actually revolutionary in one sense. In a big sense, to completely throw away the motor car civilization. So, like that, so devotees, they explain these topics and write specific books, attracting people to, the main thing, to Krishna consciousness and to Srimad Bhagavatam. And like that, and gradually, because some people, they may not be interested initially, but then they hear more and more, and then they understand that this is connected to the bigger thing. and then trying to push them more and more in that direction. Because the main thing is, that now that we're having topics about, environmentalism and, how to solve that and how to solve the hunger problem, these are all secondary problems. The main problem is that people have forgotten that they're servants of Krishna, and they don't realize that they're not the material body. That was the thrust of Srila Prabhupada's preaching, actually. But different men are in different places. So some devotees can do that, and then that's also an art also. I'm not going to get so much into that. But the main thing is that these people have to become attracted to Krishna consciousness. Not that it's some that is some eluded thing that they have to jump through this hoop here and there, and they have to do a whole criminal investigation to figure out that they're connected with this International Society for Krishna Consciousness, that they're talking to a devotee. The devotees are undercover secret agents or something like that. So that should be clear and available. And so there's different, fiction, stories, dramas, all these different things. There is also Srila Prabhupada, which we see it in some places, but that Srila Prabhupada did these different dramas and arts and things like that. One amazing thing that Srila Prabhupada did was this, really wide scale, was this transcendental art. All of his different disciples drawing all these different pictures, showing the Srimad Bhagavatam and the practical philosophy of it, because we can describe how amazing and how beautiful Krishna is, but then you show a picture of Krishna, and then it's really attractive. And then we see that also people, and we on book distribution, show them the pictures, show them who Krishna is, and people are attracted in that way. Until we can explain that that the soul is in the body, and whatever is boyhood, youth, old age, disease, like this. But then there's that picture which clearly demonstrates it so well, that the changing bodies pictures. And so these, and then also too, there was this, it still is there, but this fate, I forget, do you remember what that stands for?
Which one?
Fate?
First American Theistic Exhibition.
Yeah, okay. So that's there in Los Angeles. And then there's also, I think they also have something similar like that too in Delhi. You've seen that in Delhi? Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I liked it. They have two. They have that one, and they also have the Mahabharata also.
Yeah.
Yeah. You like the one in Los Angeles more?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I don't know. I think I like the one in Delhi more. Anyways, but yeah. But the thing is that so there's all these different avenues of attracting people, and then they can see it, and then they can appreciate Krishna. And then when you also see those things, and you see the pictures and things, and then it's like the reality comes to life. We read about it, and then you actually see, Krishna's pastimes, and they look, and it's like that. And also too, I know specifically in Mayapur, they have those different paintings. It's the same paintings in Srila Prabhupada's books, but they had some artists, draw them, and then they have them around if you go around the parikrama of the temple in the back, all these different pictures of Krishna and his pastimes and things. So they're amazing to see, and they're attracting, and people become attracted to that, and they appreciate that. And so people, they see that, they hear that, become attracted to that, and it's amazing. It's like Rath Yatras also. There's so many different things that Srila Prabhupada did, which was revolutionary, and attracting people to Krishna consciousness, and at least making them appreciate Krishna consciousness also. So these Rath Yatras of going out doing a huge parade, even if you don't know what's going on in Rath Yatra, it's hard not to get swept up in the excitement, because the devotees are naturally all fired up about Rath Yatra. And then there's a cart being pulled, and there's hundreds of people, and then everybody's chanting, and you may not know what they're chanting, but then they're happy about it, and they got the signs, and everybody's happy, flowers and this and that, and they're throwing food from the cart, and you grab it, and someone gives you a sweet ball, and it tastes so good, and you're just wondering what that is. And then you just go with the whole thing, and you follow them wherever they're going, and then they go to a park, and then there's free food, and there's dancing and chanting and dramas, and wow, it's like I wish I ran into that when I was growing up, some random thing by chance. So it's amazing and it's attractive. And Srila Prabhupada did those on huge scales in Chicago, New York, San Francisco, that's famous, Golden Gate Park, in India, all over. In Florida, they do. I mean, they have like something like some 13 Rathi Yatras that they do or something. They go with Tallahassee. So Tallahassee, they do one in Gainesville, Orlando, Daytona, Miami, Tampa, St. Augustine. They go around. So, anyways, so I remember, anyways, they would do that, and we'd be in St. Augustine, and then it's the amazing thing too about when Rath Yatra is going on is that so we were in St. Augustine, and then it's just the whole festival vibe is going on, and people are all fired up. So when people are all fired up and into it, then it makes book distribution much easier also. So everybody's taking books, and then they don't, they just stop, and they don't know what's going on, but then they're just attracted to it, and so anyways, and then Rath Yatra is amazing. So Srila Prabhupada, he had that vision, and he pushed that. And the results of that are amazing. And then so you get, there's a lot of talk these days about good public relations, have a good image. So we want to have a good image as devotees of Krishna, as a Krishna conscious movement. And then people don't understand, just like the point was being made yesterday, I think you're making that, Vishwachitra Prabhu, that if the people, they don't understand, they could just read the books. That's what the books are there for. That why are they out doing Harinam? What is this? Why are their head shaved like that? So they can read the books, and then they can understand that this is actually a tradition. That this is why these people are doing this. Goes back for so many years, and then they can learn too. Then the Yuga Dharma, what is that? And then they can inquire and understand deeply. So we're pushing on the Krishna conscious movement, and we have this knowledge which we're explaining. So there's nothing to hide in all these different things, to explain it clearly. And so the devotees have that vision. And so we have to have a monopoly on the Srimad Bhagavatam and in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the sense that we have to explain it properly and present it properly. Because there's so many people in the world, maybe not so many, but just the idea of misinterpretation of explaining Krishna as some regular person, or just like the points being mentioned here in the purport. That some people, it's amazing. It's like, I don't remember reading this, but it's always like, I feel like every week or month or something, I find some new thing about how someone says some crazy thing about the Bhagavad Gita. So the thing being mentioned here is that, they say, the Bhagavad Gita is not meant for householders, which I don't understand why, but...
I've heard, like, they say, the Hindus, they would say, like, I heard that it starts to fight at home.
Yeah, if you keep the Bhagavad Gita at home, it starts fighting.
Starts fights, huh? There you go.
It doesn't start fighting.
Yeah.
The Monopoly thing you're playing there.
Yeah. It's this internet, and was the video games, PlayStation 5. Is that the latest one?
No,
or is it something?
When I was small,
Anyways, so then the iPhone 14 Pro Max Lite. Anyways, so there's always this new idea about how that the Bhagavad Gita is explaining this, explaining that. So that's it. So anyways, I've read it so many times, but it never stuck out. So then it's not meant for householders. So then that practically cuts off most of the generation. So I guess you have to study the Bhagavad Gita as whenever you're before, as a brahmachari or something, or like that in school or whatever. Or after you take sannyas. Yeah, after you take sannyas. Take sannyas, then read Bhagavad Gita.
After you take that before.
Because, anyways. So it's an amazing idea, actually. And Srila Prabhupada amazingly knocks it off as foolish, because then he's saying, the Bhagavad Gita is meant for householders. Then why did Krishna explain it to Arjuna? He's a householder. Then he's like, I never really thought of that. And then Prabhupada also explains here too that that Krishna also, he spoke it as a householder. So a householder is speaking it to a householder, but then it's not meant for householders. Yeah. And so many other things that they say, then whatever. Yeah. Anyways, that was interesting. But I don't know. So then there's, it's just cheating. And that's the whole point. That if one is not a devotee, he may explain Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, but simply he'll just cheat because he'll have so many misconceptions. Then he'll come out. Then he'll say things like that shouldn't read Bhagavad Gita because you're a householder, and it's not meant for householders. It's meant for sannyasis, renunciates. or whatever, or, I don't know, so many things. So just like they had this TV show back in the day. So then I've mentioned this before, but then they're explaining Garuda as like some UFO, some mechanical bird or something like that, and like and so many ideas too. Then this other thing that that Krishna is like some alien or something coming from the sky. They have like all these like weird conceptions because they're highly learned, intelligent men. I don't even know. They're probably not that learned actually. It's probably just like some random guy who like dropped out of high school and somehow or other he got himself on some TV show with no qualification. So then anyway, so they go on, and because they have misconceptions and they don't know what from what, and they can't even consider that that they're not their body, have no understanding of what the soul is, the basic teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, but then they publish their own commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, or they go on TV and they explain the Bhagavad Gita, or they explain different aspects of the Puranas, or they try to explain Dwarka, or maybe it fell into the sea, maybe it's Atlantis, we don't really know, or whatever. So they have all these misconceptions. So that's the thing. So they have these misconceptions. They're not hearing from the proper authority. Srila Prabhupada, in short, he famously told Sahotra Maharaj that something along the lines that the Vedic technology or whatever is the Guru Parampara. So that's the actual process of receiving knowledge, and one has to come into a chain of disciplic successions. Because naturally we wonder if anybody's speaking, the first thing that should come into our mind if we don't know who that person is or whatever, is are they coming in Guru Parampara? Who is their guru? What is their line? What is their lineage? What is their teachings based off of? Not that it's just anybody and everyone that they, this person, he has tilak and whatever, he chants Hare Krishna, so therefore I hear from him. Who is his guru? Who is his authority? So the modern men of society, we don't accept them as authorities, and we don't take seriously their understandings and contributions on Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam because they don't come in Guru Parampara. That is the actual system of knowledge. And so that has to be explained also. And it's very easy to understand, simply for the fact that if someone goes to a university and they're accredited as a teacher or a professor, they have the credentials to back that up. Nobody will hire a teacher or a doctor, specifically a surgeon. So a surgeon's going to open heart surgery, or going to open your brain and rewire your brain. So then he tells you, well, actually, I didn't go to a university, I didn't go to school, I don't have any training. I just read a couple books, and so we're going to do brain surgery on you today. So naturally, I don't know, at least for me, like when I had to go to the whole dental crisis, I was pretty much I was interested in where these people, where they studied at and how many years and things like that. So it's the same thing with spiritual knowledge. It's the most important knowledge. It's the highest platform of knowledge. One should be interested to hear and know about where these individuals are coming from. So anyways, we'll kind of wrap up here soon because time is short. So also too, just one other aspect in understanding this. So Sutta Goswami is explaining that they're eager to hear topics of Krishna, discussions of Hari. So another aspect of that too is that you have Krishna and you have his devotees. So also too, there's the topics of Krishna and his devotees are also similarly interesting to hear, amazing to hear, and wonderful to hear in the society of devotees. Just like I was thinking that I've traveled so much, but specifically going, when we took this trip to Europe, I was very interested to go to London, specifically for the fact that I was reading that book by Ranchor Prabhu, and I'd read Shamashundar Prabhu's book also, Chasing Rhinos, but just discussing Srila Prabhupada's whole Leela just in that whole London area, and it was at least for me, I was interested in Srila Prabhupada went there and he was there and went there just like we went to that park. What was the name of that park? At Queen's Garden. You remember that? No. You don't? I don't remember. I remember the name. Anyways, I don't remember the name either. You remember?
Region?
Yeah. So we went there. Then we were on that bridge that Srila Prabhupada stood on. You got that picture there. So then So then it was, at least for me, it was just like amazing. And then we were driving too, and the Vajrayapur was like, burial place was right down the street. And just like the whole time thinking that Srila Prabhupada was in this area and just the whole history of that. That was kind of like my whole meditation in London. So, but the thing is that was, that's the devotee's mercy upon me actually, is because, probably previously, like, with the, going to London, probably see that clock tower and then whatever, go around and see the different sites and things like that. But it's, by the devotee's mercy, that desire has been purified. So then that interest in whatever, the history of places or whatever, is centered on Srila Prabhupada. And his leelas performed there. Also, too, like we're in the Bhaktivedanta Manor. He's getting, anyway, there's so many different things going on there. But the amazing thing about it for me was that's where, Srila Prabhupada's room, where Srila Prabhupada was, and then you see all the seeing all the videos of, Srila Prabhupada there in the room, and then also in Los Angeles, that is there. And then outside, there's all those pictures, just like we have on the altar. And then just sitting there and seeing, and then that's where Srila Prabhupada sat, and that's where he met with these different guests. And then just remembering the pastimes. Also, too, Srila Prabhupada was, I believe he was playing with Saraswati there, Shamashundar Prabhu's daughter, and all those different things. So anyways, all those different things were playing through my head. But that's the devotee's mercy, is that, taking these places like London, New York, all these different places connected with Srila Prabhupada's pastimes. And we may have attraction to those places, but instead of having attraction to those places based on the platform of sense gratification, they're based on the platform of Krishna and his devotees and the pastimes that they perform, and it goes on. These samskaras, just that, we're living. So many places whatever, most of us are, whatever, 20 to 30. So much of our life has been wasted, and so much was attraction and whatever thoughts and impressions have been planted in our hearts due to sense gratificatory things. We grew up in this place, we grew up in that place, we went here, we went there and saw this. But the thing is, and one of the points being mentioned in this purport, that these attractions have to be transferred in relation to Krishna and his devotees. So that every year we're celebrating, are we celebrating Christmas? No, we're not celebrating Christmas. Well, whatever, we remember the first Christmas that we had. But we remember Janmashtami, serving Krishna, Srila Prabhupada's Vyas Puja, serving Srila Prabhupada and his devotees, cooking. What did we cook? Where did we go? What did we do? One day, whatever. We distributed so many books, the maximum amount of books we distributed. Generally, we don't forget those things. They make an impression on our heart. So we want to make an impression on the hearts of the general populace of the effect of Krishna consciousness and attract them. They may have, they may be interested in Srimad Bhagavatam, for whatever reasons. Maybe they're interested in time or science or whatever. So a devotee may explain it in that way, that this verse talks about the science or whatever. But the thing is that the devotee naturally doesn't stop there. He keeps speaking and speaking and speaking, trying to bring that person to understand that, well, actually, the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam isn't, this time calculated from the atom, but that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you have to surrender to him. And so that's a big part of the Krishna conscious movement, is throwing all those things together and preaching in that way. So, anyways, I'll stop there if there's any questions or comments about anything.
Prabhu, so here I was looking at this purport, this word that Srila Prabhupada used here. He says, therefore, literatures like Mahabharata, Puranas, and similar other literatures which are full of the pastimes of the Lord are all transcendental literatures, and they should be discussed with full confidence in the society of great devotees. So I was thinking of that word, full confidence. And I found it a little interesting because Prabhupada uses the word confidence in two different ways. He uses the not so current version of the word confidence, and then the current version of understanding of the word confidence. For instance, Prabhupada says that one should reveals one's mind in confidence.
Yeah.
And to the devotees, meaning do it, in private, doing it in, one does it privately. Privately, one reveals one's heart. And then Prabhupada also says one should be confident that Krishna will protect one, Rakshishishti Vishwaso. There also Srila Prabhupada uses that word confidence. So anyways, I was looking a little more into this, searching about that word full confidence. And Prabhupada, in one place, so Prabhupada explains, Vyavasayatmika buddhihi. He said, Vyavasayatmika buddhihi means that one should have full confidence that by performing Krishna consciousness, one will attain perfection. And so here, and then in many places, well, the point I'm bringing over there is that here the reference to full confidence doesn't mean that the Srimad Bhagavatam should be discussed in private only amongst the devotees, not that it cannot be shared, with others, but rather that here the word confidence is a synonym of the word faith, that one should discuss Srimad Bhagavatam with full faith, that there might be certain things in the Srimad Bhagavatam that might be difficult for us to accept and difficult for us to digest. So many things, like fifth canto is famous for that. And then like over here it says less intelligent, and then it puts woman, and this and that, and it's difficult things for us to accept, but we should accept the Srimad Bhagavatam as it is. We should not, like, for instance, skip the last chapter of the fifth canto because we think, I don't want to read about it. Yeah. The hellish planets. You have to discuss it with full confidence. And then, interestingly, while Srila Prabhupada is describing how, that the Mayavadis and these impersonalists, their philosophy has led to people being materialistic, and that the solution is that, the topics of the Lord should be discussed. In all of his solutions, he 3 times actually, so this is the first time he's mentioning that should be discussed with full confidence in the society of great devotees. And then again in this purport, he says, it is said here, therefore, that such literature should be discussed in the assembly of devotees. That's the second time he's stating that. And then, in the very next line, he says, unless they are discussed by devotees, such literatures cannot be relished by the higher class of men. So, here Srila Prabhupada is stating that effectively, that unless devotees discuss the Srimad Bhagavatam in confidence, the higher class of men in society, the intelligentsia, will not accept it, will not be able to relish the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's like kind of contradictory, isn't it? Like you're thinking that we're just discussing it amongst ourselves, who is going to care? Now we have to water all this down and present it to others. But Srila Prabhupada is saying that unless they are discussed in full confidence among the association of devotees, this literature cannot be relished by the higher class of men. So many explanations could be given in that regard. One thought that came to my mind is that when devotees are relishing the Srimad Bhagavatam in full confidence, then automatically they gain the inspiration and conviction to be able to give that conviction to others. And then, the higher class of men, meaning, loosely we could say that they are the intelligent, or I would say, those people who are, who are intelligent, who have some thoughtfulness. Prabhupada says, Prabhupada also uses that word in the Bhagavatam, thoughtful men. Will relish by thoughtful men. So these thoughtful men in society will relish the Srimad Bhagavatam by seeing the devotees relish the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in this way, the Krishna consciousness movement will spread. As whole other subject of Varnashram, but, I just wanted to state that.
Also, by devotees discussing the Bhagavatam, they get empowered to preach the Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
How are you going to be in the Bhagavatam state of mind if you don't discuss the Bhagavatam?
One small comment on that, but one thing also too, like talking about full confidence in discussion, it's, especially like with people who, whatever, they don't have faith in like Srimad Bhagavatam. So obviously they're not convinced, like whatever, they have so many doubts, so many things. But like if we're speaking and then it's like, we're like, whatever, we're like scared, like, Krishna is a supreme personality, got it. But then it's like, they're going to be like, this guy, like, he doesn't even believe what he's saying, This is like, but if it's like, Srila Prabhupada, like, would not back down from like his points. And I mean, that's like, what to speak of just like non-devotees, but even like of the society. He didn't back down on the whole moon landing thing. And so as a result, I mean, if he would have backed, that could have been doubts or whatever, but then the followers, whatever, they would have accepted it. It could have been a whole thing. Anyway, just like one example, but there was a lot of things that Prabhupada just like never backed down on. And so that taught his disciples, and that also convinced people. And that's the symptom of it, like, of an advanced devotee, is that they have full confidence in the scripture and in Krishna. Anything else? Manajis? All right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.